Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. He wasn't who he said he was, but he was already in her house. It started with a phone call, 2:14 a.m. Her phone buzzed against the nightstand like a trapped insect. Nora stirred in the dark, confused, eyes swollen from crying herself to sleep again. Her head was heavy. Her mouth tasted stale. The ringtone wasn't her default one. It was custom, one she hadn't heard before at this hour. A soft guitar loop, warm, familiar. Elijah. She didn't even look at the screen. She just knew. Her fingers swiped before she could think. "Hello?" she whispered, voice scratchy from sleep and something else. Dread. There was silence on the other end, then static, a few clicks, like someone fumbling with the mic, then his voice. Quiet, intimate, calm. "You left your back door unlocked." Her entire body stiffened. The warm fuzziness of sleep shattered. It felt like falling into ice water. "What?" she said, sharper now, a pause. Then, "I'm already inside." The call disconnected. She sat up in bed so fast her head spun. Her alarm clock read 12 goo, blinking red. The power must have gone out at some point, but her phone had full signal. 2:15 a.m.? The bedroom was darker than it should have been. The streetlight outside wasn't on. The air felt wrong, pressurized, heavy, like just before a thunderstorm. She stared at the phone in her hand. The call log said it really was Elijah. She'd been talking to him for nearly 6 months. They'd met on a private forum for trauma survivors. He was charming, polite, thoughtful, said he lived in Wisconsin, just like her, but he was in the northern part of the state, too far to visit easily. They had never met in person. He'd always had excuses, too busy, too anxious, said he didn't like the way he looked on camera. She believed him. She'd seen a few photos, nothing that rang alarm bells. He made her laugh when no one else could. He listened. He remembered. Things she said, what her mother was like before the dementia, what songs made her cry, that she hated mirrors in the dark. Now his voice was in her house. This has to be a prank. This has to be one of those horror podcast stunts. Her breath fogged the air. She climbed out of bed slowly and tiptoed to the bedroom door. It was closed. She never locked it, never needed to. Then, a creak from the hallway, wood shifting under weight, not her imagination, not the house settling. Footsteps. She locked the door instantly, then backed away, staring at it like it might explode. She called Elijah back, straight to voicemail. She texted, "If this is you, it's not funny. I'm freaking out. Text me now." No reply. She went to her nightstand drawer and pulled out the emergency flashlight she kept from her camping days. Turned it on. The yellow beam flickered but held. Another sound outside the door, not footsteps. Breathing. Then a knock. 3. Gentle taps. Calm. Deliberate. Her heart was going to burst through her ribs. She couldn't scream. Couldn't move. She texted a friend in all caps. "I think someone is in my house. I think it's him. Call police." But before she could hit send, her phone buzzed again, a new message from Elijah. I waited so long for this moment. She hit the emergency call for 911. The operator picked up immediately. 11, what's your emergency? Someone broke in. He said he's Elijah. He's in my house. Please, I don't know how he found me. I didn't give him my address. I swear. Her voice cracked mid-sentence. She didn't sound human anymore. She sounded like a wounded animal. The operator spoke gently, asked for her name, her address, asked if she could lock herself in a room. "I am," she whispered. "I'm in my bedroom. Doors locked. Stay. On the line with me, officers are on their way." She sat down in the corner, clutching the flashlight like a weapon. Her other hand still held the phone, knuckles white. The air around her buzzed with silence. Then, scratch. Something slid under the door. She didn't want to look, but she had to. It was a piece of paper. No, a photo. She crawled closer, keeping her back against the wall. picked it up. It was her, sleeping, taken from the foot of the bed, taken tonight. Her scream broke the silence like glass shattering. The 911 operator was still on the line. "Ma'am, are you okay? What just happened?" She tried to speak, couldn't. More creaking now, further down the hall, fading away. He was walking away from her door. She strained to listen, every molecule of her body focused on sound. Then, the sound of her fridge opening, followed by a casual clink of glass. He was in her kitchen, opening her fridge like he lived here. A minute passed, then two. The silence returned. He wasn't trying to get in anymore. He was just waiting. The operator said the cops were 3 minutes out. She was shaking too hard to speak. The flashlight trembled in her hand. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message. "From Elijah, you lock one door, but how many did you forget to check?" She stared at the message, mouth open, throat closing. A sound behind her, not from the hallway, from inside the closet. A slow, soft knock. From the inside. He was already in the closet. She stared at the closet door. Her flashlight trembled. In her hand, the knock had been faint, soft, like the kind a child might make if they didn't want to disturb their mother. But there was no child in her house. There never had been. Nora's breath caught in her throat. She didn't move, didn't speak, not even a whisper. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe her brain was trying to make sense of the fear, assigning it to a sound that never happened. She took a careful step toward the closet, still crouched. She moved like prey, slow, eyes wide, everything inside her screaming not to look, but she had to. She couldn't leave it alone. Couldn't sit still and wait to die. She pressed the side of her face against the closet door, listened. Silence. No breathing, no scratching, nothing. Her heart thudded in her ears. She reached for the handle. Boom! Something slammed against the inside of the door. She shrieked and fell back, flashlight clattering away. The 911 operator's voice echoed from her phone. "Ma'am, are you safe? What just happened?" She grabbed the phone again, crawled backwards to the corner. "He's in the closet. He's in my room. He's in my room," she sobbed, barely able to get the words out. "Police are arriving now. Stay on the line. Do not engage." Another slam from the closet, harder this time. The wooden door buckled slightly in the middle, like something threw its weight against it. Then silence again. The operator said something else, but Nora didn't hear it. She could hear a siren in the distance. Now growing closer, her head spun, her stomach lurched. She couldn't breathe. The closet knob turned, but the door didn't open. It clicked once, then again. He was testing it, gently, slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Then came the voice. Not from the phone, not from the hallway, from inside the closet. "You really think a locked door stops someone who knows you?" Her blood froze. She grabbed the scissors from her dresser again, gripping them so tight her hand cramped. The sirens were outside now. Tires screeched. Footsteps, voices. Then boom! The front door was kicked in. She heard shouting. "Police! Police!" The closet went silent again. Seconds later, fists pounded on her bedroom door. "Ma'am! Police! Open up!" She hesitated. What if he was pretending? She shouted back, "Badge number! Give me your badge number!" The voice returned immediately, calm, professional. "Badge 4812, ma'am. Officer Hennings, you're safe now. Please open the door." Nora unlocked the door with a shaking hand, then stepped aside. 2 officers entered, weapons drawn, flashlights sweeping across the room. One aimed directly at the closet. "Closet," Nora whispered. "He's in the closet. He sent me pictures. He was in my room. I don't know how long." They opened the closet. It was empty. No man, no mask, no sign of forced entry, just old boxes, a winter coat, a pair of dusty boots she hadn't worn since last January. Her knees gave out. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. An hour later, the police had checked every inch of the house. Windows secure, no sign of a break-in, no fingerprints other than hers, no hidden cameras, nothing. Could be a sophisticated spoofing app, one of them said. They can clone numbers now. Voice AI's gotten creepy good. Still, you say he sent you a photo of yourself asleep? Tonight? She nodded, showed them the picture. The officer's brows furrowed. This looks like it was taken from... Right there! He pointed to the foot of her bed. You didn't take this yourself? No, she said, voice hoarse. I don't remember this at all. And you say you met this guy online? Never in person? No, just messages, phone calls. Anything you told him that could give away your address? Nora blinked. The last few weeks, she'd talked about her backyard, her street being quiet, the lilac bush out front that only bloomed on one side. Had she told him about the red mailbox? Or the broken porch light? Maybe she had. Maybe he'd pieced it all together. Ma'am, the other officer said softly, we're going to have someone watch the property overnight, just in case. But there's nothing else we can charge. No forced entry, no physical harm, just digital evidence. Nora stared at them, hollow-eyed. I don't feel safe here, she whispered. She didn't sleep the rest of that night. She packed a duffel bag, grabbed her essentials, and left the house before sunrise. Drove 2 hours to her sister's cabin out in the woods. Isolated, old, no Wi-Fi. She left her phone off for 3 days. But the damage was already done. She couldn't escape the feeling that he'd been watching her longer than she knew. The Burst-Lie was his name. Back when she met Elijah, he claimed to be 32, graphic designer, lived with a dog named Bean, parents dead, raised by his aunt. That's what he told her, but when she went digging, really digging, something didn't line up. The number he used came from a burner app. Reverse image search on one of his profile photos brought up a different name. A real man, one who'd been missing since 2019. That was when the dread reached her bones. Who the hell had she been talking to? She used a friend's phone to message the forum where they met. Searched all of Elijah's posts. Most were gone. Deleted. The day. Ones that remained were off. They weren't like she remembered. They sounded like someone mimicking human pain, a copycat wearing a grieving person's skin. She scrolled and scrolled. One comment jumped out. I like the quiet ones. They make the best listeners. That account had posted on at least 6 grief threads, all with women in their 20s or 30s. Some of the usernames were gone now. Deactivated. She reached out to one of the only ones still active. A girl named Lacey. Hey, Nora messaged. Did you ever talk to someone named Elijah on here? Private messages? The reply came 2 hours later. Yeah, we were close. Why? Did you ever meet him in real life? No, we were going to, but I backed out. Something. It felt off. What happened? I got a photo of myself sleeping. No note, just the picture. That was 3 weeks ago. Then nothing. No more texts, no more posts. I left the site after that. Nora sat perfectly still, her heart beating like a funeral drum. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about grief. It was a hunt, and she had been one of many. That night she tried to sleep. She was still at her sister's cabin. No service, no signal. She'd taken the batteries out of the smoke detectors just to make sure nothing beeped. The only light came from the fireplace. She stayed on the couch, surrounded by pillows, a kitchen knife under the blanket, a bottle of pepper spray clutched in one hand. Her sister was overseas. No one knew she was here. That was the point. But just after 2 a.m., she woke up, not to a sound, to absence. The fire was out. The air was cold, and something was wrong. She sat up slowly. The knife slipped to the floor. There, on the coffee table, a photo. Another one, not printed, developed in black and white, her sleeping on this couch, taken from behind the fireplace. She screamed, bolted for the front door. It was locked. She threw it open anyway, stumbled into the woods barefoot, ran until her legs gave out. When police found her the next morning, she was curled under a pine tree, shaking and repeating the same words. He was never online. He was always real. He was always watching. He followed me to the place I didn't tell anyone about. The hospital room was too bright. Nora flinched every time someone opened the blinds, as if the light could reveal things no one wanted to see. The nurse gently pushed a cup of water toward her. "Do you want to talk to someone? We have a trauma counselor on call." "No," she whispered. "I don't want to talk anymore." But that wasn't true. She wanted someone to believe her, to believe the photos, the voice, the closet, the damn photograph on the table that no one could explain. The officers called it a stress reaction, a psychological break, but Nora knew better. She wasn't hallucinating. She wasn't sleepwalking. She didn't develop film in the middle of the night and place pictures of herself by the fireplace. Someone had done that. He had done that, but the police couldn't trace the number. No fingerprints, no forced entry, no motive, because there was no proof the man ever existed at all. It was as if the person she'd spoken to for weeks had vanished into the very air. A ghost made from code and breath. 2 days later, she checked herself out. She didn't go home. Didn't go back to her apartment or the cabin. Instead, she did something she hadn't done in 10 years. She drove out to the desert, to the land her grandfather left them when he passed, a run-down trailer buried between canyons where towers didn't reach, and only the wind spoke. She hadn't told anyone about the trailer in years. It didn't even show up on maps. It wasn't a hideout. It was a dead place, and that's what she needed. Silence, isolation, the kind of empty that not even he could find. At least that's what she thought. 3 days into the desert, she was sleeping better. The nightmares hadn't stopped, but they felt muffled, like they were happening in someone else's head. She unplugged from everything. No phones, no tech. She washed dishes by hand, read old books, and sat on the trailer steps watching dust devils spiral across the canyon floor. She was still scared, of course. She checked the locks 10 times a night, slept with a knife under her pillow, set up makeshift traps with cans and string around the perimeter, but there was no way he could have found her out here. She didn't tell her sister, not the police, not even the counselor who kept leaving voicemails she didn't listen to. Only one person knew about the trailer, and he'd been dead for a decade. So when the first can rattled just after 2 a.m., she told herself it was wind, just wind. Then she heard it again, but closer. She held her breath and sat up in bed, knife in hand. Creak, creak, the steps outside. No animals out here would climb steps. She silently rose, crept toward the small window near the trailer door, and peeked through the corner. There was no one there, just moonlight, just the empty dust. Her fingers shook as she pulled back. Maybe it had been her imagination. Maybe the cans had just screamed. The sound came from underneath the trailer. Long, slow, like metal on metal. She froze. The only crawl space was barely big enough for a child. Who would be under there? Why? She pressed her ear to the floor. Silence, then thump, 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 3 knocks from underneath her bed. She screamed and leapt back. The lights flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. She grabbed her lantern and ran to the door, unlocked it, bolted outside into the cold night. Her breath puffed in clouds. She turned back toward the trailer. The door was wide open again. She hadn't left it that way. And there, just inside the threshold, another photograph. This one wasn't of her. It was of the trailer itself, taken from far away, zoomed in through binoculars or a long lens, at night from the ridge above. Her stomach twisted. She looked up toward the cliffs in the distance, nothing but stars and shadows. She didn't go back inside. She spent the night curled in the back of her car, engine running, headlights on the trailer. Nothing moved, but she didn't sleep. The next day, she drove into the nearest town, an hour away, and used a public library computer to look for something she swore she'd Never search stalking forums. Not the kind about celebrity obsessions, the real kind. The deep ones. Women with fake names sharing stories of people who never left them alone. People who knew their schedules, guessed their passwords, appeared where they shouldn't. She posted anonymously. Someone I met online sent me photos of myself sleeping. Now I've gone off-grid to a location I never shared. Last night, I got a picture of my trailer. He was watching me from the ridge. What can I do? He never shows his face. There's no trace of him. I don't know his real name. She refreshed the page over and over. No replies, until one username messaged her privately, "Sister of Crows. You won't believe me, but I've been where you are." Nora's heart pounded as she typed, "Where am I?" In the hands of a listener. That's what they call themselves. Nora blinked. What does that mean? They pretend to care about your pain, your grief. They feed on it. They follow you not just digitally. They listen through walls, air vents, open windows, old tech, broken cameras. They embed, and once they've learned enough, they take something from you. What? Your voice, your trust, your reality. Nora's hands shook as she typed. How do you make them stop? There was a long pause. Then came the reply. You don't, unless you turn the listening back on them. That night, Nora made a decision. She wasn't going to run anymore. She was going to watch him back. She drove to a pawn shop and bought a tape recorder. Not digital, analog. No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no signal. She left it on her windowsill, facing. The woods hit record. She slept with the lights on, knife in hand. One eye open, the next morning she played back the tape. Nothing for the first 5 hours. Then scratching, then a low hum, then a voice. Distorted. Barely audible. But there, whispering. Not words at first. Then, clear as day. You never told anyone about this place. Her heart stopped. The voice continued. But I've always known you, since before you joined the site, before the grief group. Before you spoke the words aloud, you called for help, I answered. Then static, then silence. Nora dropped the recorder like it had burned her. She staggered outside, breathing hard, stomach twisting. She turned to look up at the ridge. This time, he was there, just a silhouette, standing still. Watching as if he'd never left. The last message he left wasn't meant for me. He didn't move. Nora stared up at the ridge, the silhouette frozen in the grey morning light like a shadow, stitched into the horizon. A part of her prayed it was a hallucination, a trick of exhaustion, of sleep-deprived fear. But then the figure did something worse than move. He waved, casual, slow, like a friend saying goodbye at the end of a visit. Nora backed away from the trailer, her eyes locked on the spot above. But when she blinked, he was gone, just like before, just like always. That afternoon, she made the trek up to the ridge. She hiked for hours in the dry heat, sweat soaking through her clothes, boots crunching through gravel and brush. At the top, she found the spot. Flattened grass, boot prints in the dirt, and a small metal box tucked beneath a pile of rocks. She stared at it for a long time, then slowly, carefully opened it. Inside, a cassette tape, labeled in faded red ink. Nora. Final, her stomach turned. This wasn't a game. This wasn't some creep. On the internet, he'd been planning this. Tracking her, watching her longer than she realized. She tucked the tape into her jacket, not daring to listen there. Not in the open, not in the place he left it. Back at the trailer, she sat on the floor with the old tape recorder, closed all the windows, locked every door. She pressed play. The tape hissed. Then came the voice. His voice, low, steady, smiling. You're wondering who I am? You think I catfished you, that I made up the grief, the suicide story. You think I lied, and I did, but not about why I chose you. Nora's throat clenched. You left a review once, for a book about trauma. 3 years ago. said something about losing your brother, said you felt like your words didn't matter to anyone. But they did. They mattered to me. The smile in his voice sharpened. I watched you drift, year after year. You wore grief like it was armor, like you were meant to be alone. So I gave you someone to talk to. I gave you me. She slammed the pause button. Her hand was trembling. This wasn't just stalking. It was obsession rooted in something far worse, a belief that he'd saved her, that what he did was love. She pressed play again. But here's the thing. Love requires sacrifice. And now, so do you. A click. Then a second voice entered the tape. It wasn't his. It was hers. Nora's voice. A recording from weeks ago. I just don't know who I am anymore. The recording of her whispered. I feel like I'm unraveling and like I'm not real. Tears welled in her eyes. That had been one of their calls. One of the private late-night conversations she'd forgotten he could record. She fast-forwarded through static. Her voice again, later on. If I could start over, I would. Wipe it all, just disappear. Then his voice returned. I've given you that chance. No more apartment, no more job, no more phone, no more friends checking in. You're already gone, Nora. And they won't look for you, because the last message they'll get won't be from you. The power in the trailer cut out. The recorder stopped. Darkness swallowed her. Nora lunged for the door, flung it open. He was standing on the steps, close enough now to see his face, and it wasn't his face. It was her brother's, the same jawline, the same eyes, but off, slightly wrong. Like a painting copied from memory, hollow, empty. She screamed, backed away, reaching for the knife. But he just smiled and held up her phone. She hadn't seen it in days. She'd thrown it in a drawer before coming here, but now it was unlocked. Screen glowing, and he was playing a voice memo, her voice talking calmly, emotionlessly. Hey guys, just wanted to let you know I'm heading off grid for a while. Need time to process things. Please don't worry. I'm safe. Then a beep. Then silence. He looked at her, spoke quietly. I sent it an hour ago. To everyone. By now they've all deleted the number. She lunged at him, knife raised, but he didn't fight. He let her swing. The blade grazed his arm, drawing blood, but no scream, no reaction. He stepped back and whispered, You still don't get it. You invited me. You made me real. Then he turned and ran into the night, into the trees. Gone. Nora didn't chase. She ran inside and locked the door. She waited until morning, and then for the first time in weeks, she drove back into civilization. But the world had moved on. No one had called her in days. Her sister said, I thought you needed space. The job had replaced her. Her social media was deactivated. Even the grief support group had posted a farewell message, wishing Nora peace on her journey of healing. She tried to explain, to scream that it wasn't her, that someone else had done this, but there was no proof, no audio, no voicemail, no man on the dating app, no photo evidence. Even the trailer, when police checked it, was clean. No boot prints, no tapes, no signs of forced entry, just an empty place in the desert. 2 weeks later, Nora tried to move on. She got a new number, new apartment, new job in a smaller town. But every night before bed, she unplugged everything, turned mirrors to face the wall, slept with the lights on, and every morning she checked her phone's voice memos, because sometimes there'd be one she didn't record, just a few seconds long, her own voice, saying things she never remembered saying, until one night when she couldn't sleep, she played the latest one. It was only 3 seconds, but it changed everything. Her voice said, Don't trust the mirror. She turned toward the vanity, across the room, and froze, because in the mirror she wasn't alone. She said she was my birth mother. I should have let her stay dead. The first thing Melanie noticed was the smell, sweet, like rotting peaches left too long in a warm drawer. She didn't know it yet, but that scent would follow her for weeks, clinging to clothes, to pillows, to places where shadows didn't. And quite behave. The message came late one night, a Facebook DM request from an account called Ruth Matson. No mutual friends, no profile picture, just a blank grey face and the words, "I'm your real mother. Please don't be scared." Melanie laughed at first. She was 29. Her adoptive parents had never hidden the truth. She knew she'd been given up at birth. Knew the file was sealed. She didn't respond. The next night, a second message. "Your birthday is November 12th. You were born in a hospital outside Reading. They told me you died. You didn't." Melanie's smile faltered. That was her birthday. And the hospital. She'd never shared that online. She clicked the profile, still blank, no bio, no history. But the account had been created 3 days ago, and there were 2 posts. One was a black and white photo of a baby girl, wrapped in a blanket with a name tag just barely legible. She zoomed in, her breath caught. It read, "Baby girl Matson, 11/12. The second post was a short caption, "She was mine, and I'm coming back for her." Melanie showed the messages to her fiancé, Jonah. He dismissed them. Catfish, scam artist, ignore it. But Melanie couldn't. Something about the phrasing, the photo, the way the details felt right. It didn't feel like a scam. It felt like a warning, she messaged back. "If this is a joke, it's not funny. Who are you?" A minute passed. Then a typing bubble appeared. "You have my eyes. You used to cry when the radio stopped. I used to sing to you in the dark." Melanie stared at the screen. The radio thing. It was real. Her adoptive mother used to joke about it when she was little. You'd scream the second the music cut off, like you thought the silence would swallow you. She'd never told anyone else. The next day, Melanie got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside, a folded note. No signature. Just 5 words. "She lied about your father." That night, her adoptive mother called, drunk, said things she'd never said before, that there was something strange about the adoption, that she hadn't seen Melanie's birth mother in person, that the baby had been delivered to them at a rest stop, swaddled and silent, handed off by a woman who refused to show her face. It was like she vanished, her mum said, like she wasn't real. 2 days later, Melanie got an email. The subject line read, "Still don't believe me." Attached was a video, grainy, black and white security footage, dated November 13th, 1995. The day after Melanie's birthday, it showed a woman, long dark hair, tall, wrapped in a hospital gown, walking out of a maternity ward holding a baby. Alarms were going off. Nurses were running. But the woman walked straight past them all, unseen. Melanie's blood ran cold. She recognized the baby blanket. It was the one in her memory box, the one she'd slept with as a child. She forwarded the clip to Jonah. He called back instantly. "You need to block her," he said. "This is going too far." Melanie tried, but the account was gone, deleted. Every trace of Ruth Matson had vanished. That night, Melanie had a dream. She was lying in a crib, wrapped in warmth, and a woman stood over her, whispering a lullaby, not in English. The language was low, musical, thick with something ancient. Melanie didn't recognize the words. But when she woke, up her arms were covered in bruises, like fingers had held her in the night. 3 days later, the first mirror cracked. It was in the bathroom. A fine spiderweb fracture, nothing dramatic, but the next day, the bedroom mirror cracked too, and then the hallway one. Each time, it split inwards, like something had pressed against the glass from the inside. Jonah was growing distant. He claimed it was stress, that she was letting her past get in her head. Then one night she came home to find him staring at the living room mirror, just standing there, hand pressed against the glass, lips moving. She grabbed his arm. He didn't respond. His eyes were rolled back. She screamed, shook him, and then he collapsed. When he came to, he had no memory of it, but his arm, the one that touched the mirror, had blistered. Like it had been burned, Melanie finally went to the adoption agency in person. The woman at the desk looked confused. "There's no record of your adoption," she said. "We don't have your file." "I was adopted through this office," Melanie insisted. "I have your name on paperwork." The woman checked the system again, then frowned. "Ma'am, this agency wasn't open in 1995. Melanie blinked. "That's not possible. We reopened under this name in 2001, the woman said. "Before that, it was a church-run service." "Which church?" The woman hesitated, then said, "You won't find it now. Burned down in 98. Everyone in it died." That night, Melanie found a symbol scratched into the back of the hallway mirror, a spiral surrounded by teeth. She didn't recognize it, but something in her gut did. She Googled symbols, folklore, cult iconography, and after hours of digging, she found a match: the mother spiral, an old cult myth. Women who died in childbirth but refused to pass on, spirits that clung to the living, claiming their stolen children, known for infiltrating dreams, appearing in mirrors, whispering, lullabies in dead tongues, and their name, the matrons. Melanie stared at the screen. She finally understood. The woman online hadn't catfished her for money. She didn't want revenge. She wanted her baby back, and she was using every dark, buried thing to get her. The next morning, Melanie found Jonah missing. His keys, wallet, and shoes were still by the door. The only thing out of place was the bedroom mirror. It was shattered completely. On the wall behind it, written in something red and sticky, "He saw me." Melanie called the police, but they found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no prints, no Jonah, just the cracked mirrors, the scent of peaches, and a single strand of long black hair. She said, "She was my birth mother. I should have let her stay." "Dead." The detective's voice was flat. "We've tracked Jonah's phone to an abandoned chapel west of Reading. Burned down in 98. The place is unstable. We need your help identifying anything we find." Melanie's pulse spiked. The name of the church matched the one from the agency records, the one that had supposedly burned down with everyone inside. And now Jonah was there. Or something was. The chapel sat crooked, like the earth had grown tired of holding it. Ash-black beams clawed at the sky. The bell tower was gone, but something metallic still hung by a chain, swaying like a warning. Melanie stepped over splintered pews and into a room that smelled like old rain and rotted fruit. Smell from the messages. From her dreams, peaches, always peaches. "Jonah," she whispered. No answer, but a sound echoed through the ruined chapel, a lullaby, not sung aloud, but inside her skull. A melody older than words, laced with longing and grief. She turned a corner and froze. The back wall of the chapel had been cleared. Candles flickered in a spiral shape on the floor. Dozens of mirrors, cracked, rusted, scorched, were nailed to the wall, forming a jagged mosaic. And in the center of it all, Jonah! He stood, eyes wide open, hands twitching, lips trembling. "Jonah!" She ran toward him. He didn't move, didn't blink, until she crossed the spiral. Then, suddenly, he spoke, but not in his voice. "I've waited so long," the voice rasped. "You were taken from me, ripped from my body. I bled and screamed, and they told me you were dead." Melanie staggered backward. Jonah's eyes turned black, like ink swirling over water. "You were mine," the voice hissed. "And now, you come home." Melanie reached into her coat pocket. The small silver mirror she'd brought, for protection, like the folklore said. She turned it toward him. The reflection didn't show Jonah. It showed her, but not her now. A newborn, screaming, cradled in shadow, eyes wide, mirrored by a dark figure, hair soaked in blood, swaying and singing in a dead language. Melanie hurled the mirror against the wall. The spiral flared to life. Every candle blazed upward. The mirrors vibrated, humming with low guttural sound. From behind them something moved, not one figure, dozens, women, bent, broken, burned, faces lost to flame and rot. And in the center, the one with the longest hair, her body still wearing a hospital gown stained with birth and ash. Ruth, no longer digital, no longer just a whisper. She stepped forward, her hands still reaching. "You were stolen," she said. "But you still know me. That's why the lullaby works. It's in your blood." Melanie shook her head. "You're not my mother. You're a ghost that feeds on guilt." The figure flickered, then snarled. "I gave birth to you in pain and fire. My blood lives in yours. You're mine." Jonah collapsed, screaming. His body convulsed, choking on nothing. Melanie dove to him, her hands brushed his chest, and suddenly she was somewhere else, a memory. No, a possession. She stood in a white room, a grib beside her, a nurse in the hallway. She wasn't Melanie anymore, she was Ruth. The nurse walked in. "Time for the handoff," she said cheerfully. Ruth hesitated. "I changed my mind," the nurse frowned. "I'm keeping her," Ruth whispered. Then screams, chaos, blood. The nurse went down first, a scalpel to the throat. Ruth wrapped the baby in a blanket, kissed its head and fled into the hallway. Then fire, smoke, walls cracking, people pounding on doors. She walked through it all, untouched. Melanie snapped back into her body, coughing, gasping. Ruth's voice was calm now. "I gave my life for you, died so you could live. That chapel burned with me in it, and you grew up in someone else's arms." She reached out again. "Now, it's your turn. Come home." Melanie stood. "You're not here because I was stolen. You're here because you can't let go. You've become something else, something hollow." Ruth hissed. The spiral began to burn. The candles tipped, catching the old wood. Mirrors cracked violently one by one. Jonah stirred. Melanie grabbed him. Together they ran. The chapel collapsed behind them. Screams rose in the smoke. But Melanie didn't look back. She held Jonah's hand, still warm, and ran until the only thing behind them was the scent of ash and the sound of sirens. 6 weeks later. Jonah never remembered what happened inside the chapel. Only flashes, a voice in the mirror, a spiral of fire, Melanie's hand in his. But Melanie remembered everything. She'd done a DNA test afterward, needing to know. The results were confusing. Her mother's identity, unconfirmed. But the mitochondrial trace, the deep maternal line, matched a woman named Ruth Matson, deceased, died in a chapel fire. In 1995, the day after Melanie was born, she visited the ruins once more. Weeks later, just rubble now, yellow tape and rust, but something caught her eye. Among the ash, a cracked mirror, small, framed in silver, undamaged at the center. She leaned over, the reflection showed her face, and just behind it, for a second, a glimpse of long black hair, then gone. Final line, dark lesson. She thought she'd escaped her past, but some mothers never stop looking for their children. The end.